Hi everyone, so welcome today to the BAE Systems webinar. With a workforce of almost 90,000 people, BAE Systems is one of the biggest defence engineering companies in the world and is definitely the largest in the UK. They have several business units including air, maritime, land, electronic systems and cyber. And the MOD is one of their largest customers, supplying products to the Navy, Army and RAF. They are currently recruiting for undergraduates and graduates to join them this year. So if you'd like to be part of this amazing company, visit their hub on GradCracker after this webinar and apply today. So let's meet the panel. We've got James, who studied at Ulster University and studied software engineering. Kira, who went to the University of Strathclyde, who studied chemical engineering. Jenny went to the University College London and studied mechanical engineering. And last but not least, Cameron studied aeronautical engineering from the University of Salford. And Hafsa is the sourcing and attraction lead, and Hafsa will answer all the questions about the recruitment process, when to get your applications in and everything else. So welcome everybody from BAE. Just like you to wave then.
I know.
Thanks, Jenny. It's like University Challenge, isn't it? So I can't answer any of the questions on University Challenge. I just watch it for the giggles. It's way above me. Hafsa, I'm going to start with you, my love. So we touched briefly on the business units at BAE. So can you tell the audience a little bit more about each one?
Okay, so we do have a wide range of business units at BAE Systems. Such as air, maritime, land, electronic systems, and cyber. So at BAE Systems, we are a global defence organisation. So we design, manufacture, upgrade and support products such as Typhoons, land vehicles, complex service ships, and we are a leading supplier of cyber intelligence and security capabilities as well.
Fantastic. And you don't just supply to the UK, Hafsa, do you supply globally?
Yes, we do. We're an international employer.
Yeah, fantastic. And from your point of view, everything's up in the air this year with COVID, and hopefully things are going to be settling down over the next few months. But what is your recruitment process looking like this year, Hafsa? So students will get the applications in now. You know, that, as I mentioned, the roles are live on GradCracker. So what does the application process look like?
So at the moment, we have been extremely fortunate with our recruitment this year, given the circumstances with the pandemic. We have continued business as usual, and we did already explore our virtual platforms. So we introduced video interviews prior to this, and that was part of our recruitment process already. And whilst I came to sourcing and attraction, I also explored a lot of the virtual events as well. So we predominantly kind of started virtual events before the pandemic and other competitors starting on virtual. So the only thing that's kind of changed for us a little bit in our recruitment process step was the fact that we had to introduce our face-to-face interview days or assessment centre days to Skype calls. And this has been successful for us. And I think from a candidate's perspective as well, because it's been cost effective for them and less time for them to be commuting to interview days and doing it, you know, all from the place at home as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we've got some really good stories from the grads later on in the webinar as well about the assessment centre and about how accommodating BAE Systems was during the whole process. So thanks for the overview there. Just so everybody knows who's the audience listening in, the overview of the application process is on the BAE Systems hub in more detail. So go and have a look at that. And also they do sponsor the GradCracker toolkit. So if you'd like to know a little bit more about the sector of defence, which BAE Systems sponsors, then obviously feel free to go to the Career Centre and take a look at that. So thank you very much, Hafsa.
Hafsa, I've got a question for you as well, actually. Can I ask what sort of person would be an ideal fit for BAE Systems?
So we are looking for individuals who are passionate, has the enthusiasm as get-go, critical thinkers, bringing fresh ideas into the business and being bold, looking for challenges to new ways of working. And also collaborative as well. So obviously, size of our business and business units that we work with, it's really important to have that really key communication skills as well. And individuals that really want to develop themselves with the vast opportunities that we have across the UK as well as international. I think the world's your oyster, really. So if you bring in that enthusiasm, the passion, and you're willing to network, you're willing to give that hard work in, These are like kind of the soft skills that you can bring into us, and we can build on the technical skills at BAE Systems once you're in the business with us. Because once you start, you are really very much on the real hand-on experience projects, exciting ones that we can work with as well.
Brilliant. That sounds
I think I've just got one more question. So we mentioned about the different business units that BAE are in earlier on. Can a graduate apply to, do you recruit graduates from all of those different business units?
We have a wide range of roles which vary between the business units. So for example, if there was a role within our air sector, then projects such as typhoons. If you was an individual that wants to work on ships, as an example, then you work at our maritime business unit, and land, an example, or cyber. So depending on what type of graduate program that you're coming in with, which type of role will depend on what business unit that you fall into.
Yeah, and one last question. I'm picking your brains now. I'm thinking on my feet here. One last question. So, if somebody went into air, for example, and thought, "Oh, do you know what? Working on a typhoon isn't for me. I want to go into the maritime business unit." Is it interchangeable? Can you start with one and then go into another?
So if you're coming in as a placement opportunity, which is our summer internship or an industrial placement, we tend to keep you in the role that you applied for. However, the opportunity while you're in the business and there may be a need on a certain project, and if you've built your network and spoke to your manager, it could be that could be something that we could cater for. It's not something that we kind of encourage, and even on our graduate program, once you come into our graduate program and the role that you've applied for, such as mechanical engineer, that kind of remit that you'll stay in. However, if you felt whilst you're on the program that wasn't really quite for you, this is where you'll speak to your line manager and people that support you with mentoring, that you can kind of look around, network. And I think the great opportunity at BAE Systems is that we're such a big company that you'll always find your feet somewhere. So I think it's a really good opportunity that you can come in and have a look around. And I mean, obviously our graduate programs before was a placement program where you were able to move around, but just listening from some of the feedback that we had from our past graduates, they were moving in too quickly after 6 months duration, so they weren't really capturing what that role was about. So now you're coming in for the role that you've applied for, and you're actually working on that role, and then you have your exit role as that role as well.
Perfect. Thanks, Hattie. I'll stop quizzing you now.
I'd like to start with the grads and kind of understand why you chose BAE. So Kieran, James, I know you previously did placements with BAE, which you both found on GradCracker, of course. Kieran, you chose to do 2 summer placements and then come back as a graduate to do the same, to kind of in the same department, didn't you? Could you tell us a bit about what you did and how you found it in your experience?
Yeah, so I came in as a summer intern in the summer of 2017.
Yeah.
I was a product safety summer intern, so I went into product safety department in our submarines business.
Okay.
I did numerous different types of safety analysis, and actually by chance was given the lead on a project that would ultimately result in a big design change, which is a bigger deal than it sounds when you're dealing with the Royal Navy. So no, that was really interesting, and it was really, really good to be given that opportunity, especially as a summer intern. And I suppose that's kind of what attracted me back. Being treated as an equal, even as a summer intern, kind of really sets the scene for the rest of your career. So if we are quite an equal opportunities business, it's everything's an open door. I deal with directors and chief engineers on a daily basis, so it's it's really, really good that way. The biggest attraction back was my team, to be honest with you. The team that I worked with were really great, and actually even kept in touch throughout the year when I went back to university. So that was really good. I felt like I'd already been integrated into the team, so I kind of felt I was one of them already, even though I wasn't a graduate yet. So that really made my decision to want to come back as a graduate. And to be honest, having spoken to other summer interns and industrial placement students that have returned, that seems to be quite a common theme.
Yeah, do you know, I'm really glad that you're saying this, because I think some students really do underestimate the importance of experience and how that experience can actually lead you to go back for another year, for example, to then also land your graduate job. And that was kind of your career path. So can I just clarify so the students understand? So you were second year when you went for your first placement?
Third year in Scotland.
Third year, then fourth year, and then when you finish. So it's absolutely, again, I've just done so many presentations and stuff this week saying to students, if you can get the placement, it really kind of sorts you out for a graduate job at the end of it. So that's absolutely brilliant. James, I want to move to you next because you decided to do a year-long placement with BAE. Can you tell us a bit about your experiences?
Yeah, so I did a year-long placement as a systems engineer down in Christchurch, although I was studying in Northern Ireland. So that's, Christchurch in England. It was fantastic because it was sold to me as a jack of all trades role. Yeah. So while I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do, in that role I got to be systems engineer, hardware engineer, integration, testing, security, software developer, and a little bit dealing with the customer themselves. So it was fantastic that although I'd got my experience so far at uni in software, BAE were prepared to let me go and try other areas.
Yeah, because that was going to be my next point, really, because you obviously studied software engineering. So why did you choose this career path kind of away from software development?
Well, to be honest, it was sort of just how things fell. While I was looking for, what career path I wanted to go down, software was sort of the leading role. But then midway through an interview with BAE, the interviewer turned around and said, well, it sounds like you want to do systems engineer more than software. Do you want to interview for that as well? Really? So I did that, got the placement, and then here I am.
Gosh, that's great, isn't it? And you wouldn't have expected that, unless they'd said it.
No, to be honest, I knew very little of it. It was only I did a module's worth at university that year. But no, it set me on this path. I'm very happy. It was a good day.
And you wouldn't look back.
No, exactly.
Jenny, moving to you next. You went straight into being on the graduate program. So what attracted you to do this?
So my background is in mechanical engineering, as you've mentioned. So that's partially why I found kind of the work and the products that BAE Systems build to be so exciting. A lot of it is very relevant to my degree. As a career, though, I kind of wanted to pursue something a bit more business oriented in project management. So I was kind of keen on combining both sort of my interest and in project management and my background in engineering, so working on kind of large scale programs in an engineering environment, but more on the management side. So I think that's something that is really great in BAE Systems. Both project management and engineering are such big functions. They're both really important to the business. So so if you are sort of thinking of roles outside of pure technical engineering roles, there's a lot of other opportunities as well. So that was another thing, is just a diverse range of roles available, lots of different opportunities to build a career. And when I was applying, I was actually quite torn between like the air and submarine sectors, because both sounded really interesting to me. So I just wanted to do something very different and quite challenging, which is why I went for submarines in the end. But yeah, it's been great. Development is also something that's really important to me as well, as someone who loves to learn and never wants to stop learning, basically. So when I went to my graduate interviews, I actually specifically looked out for places that encourage training and development as part of their graduate program.
And would you say?
I think we're going to cover off that point. Oh, sorry, Jess. I was just going to say we're going to cover off that a little bit later.
Okay, great.
We're going to cover that off a little bit later on, like all the fantastic training and development opportunities which are open at BAE Systems. They are phenomenal. So yeah, keep watching.
Yeah, because that is a real driver. I think when you are looking for a job, you want to know that there is that development, that career path that you can have. So yeah, it's good that we're going to talk about that. Cameron, I'm going to move to you next. I've heard on the grapevine that this is your dream job.
Right, so I guess a bit different to the other sort of graduates' history of not really being too certain about what they wanted to do. I've been had my heart pretty set on aviation or aerospace for many years. Going back in time a bit, when I was significantly younger. My family was part of the British forces as civil servants, and proportion of that we were based in Gibraltar in the south of Spain.
Yeah.
It's a bit of an unusual sort of place to get access to the mainland Gibraltar. You have to cross the runway. But I lived near this runway, and from there I got to see numerous aircraft, both civil and military, take off from this. And one that really kind of stuck in my mind, and one that I was like obsessed. Every time I heard that this was going to happen, I would go out and like get as close as I could, legally as close as I could, to ensure that I could see these. And it was just the Eurofighter Typhoon taking off. And I was just instantly hooked. Like, aviation was just such a big part of me from then on. And I got to see these take off and sort of pull the maneuvers and do the sort of like, you know, just everything was amazing to me with these. So from this, I moved into uni to study this and do my sort of degree there. And, you know, I worked through this and I got real interested in whether I'd go into more civil background or more of a sort of defense with the aerospace degree. And I kind of quickly realized that what really interested me in uni was kind of like the cutting edge, the sort of the absolute limits that we're exploring with these sort of technology and engineering. So things such as like breaking the sound barrier, seeing what limits an aircraft can really do, all the sort of like G forces and everything associated with it. And that kind of led me to the route, well, if I want to explore that more, civil's probably not the place to do that. Defense is probably more where I want to go with that. And so, you know, I knew of BAE Systems from a history with them, and decided that, you know, that's somewhere I want to apply and work for and be part of. And now, years later, I'm working on the exact same aircraft that kind of started this all with me. Working on it. A large portion of my work is with the Typhoon now. But before I really committed to applying to BAE Systems, I did do my sort of like, you know, research on the company and see what I could find out. I got in contact with a few previous sort of retired employees, spoke to them about it and said, look, I'm interested in applying for BAE Systems. What's your opinion? How have you felt? Do you think I should go for it? And none of them had anything bad to say. Every one of them fully encouraged me to apply and join up. So it's a great place. So here I am.
Brilliant. You know, it must be, I mean, you don't look old enough, to be honest, Cameron. You look very young. But, you know, to kind of almost feel as though you've achieved so much already in your career, and to feel like, you know, you're almost, you know, there. And I'm going to ask this later on, so it's a question I was going to ask about a 5-year plan, but I'll come back to that because I want to see what your future plans are. But I know we're going to kind of move on to the application process next, aren't we? So James, I think we're going to find out a bit what's the next process.
I think just to kind of, I mean, you've all mentioned little bits and pieces there. So Cameron, about the Typhoon, you know, how hands-on is it? You know, do you sit and pretend that we're in a normal world, but do you actually ever get to go and see a Typhoon, go and sit in it, go and tinker about with it? Or is it all, you know, James, stop laughing at my phraseology, tinker about the Typhoon, but do you actually get hands-on? And then, you know, Kira, to you, do you actually get to be on a submarine? How hands-on is it?
Do you want me to answer?
You go first, Kira.
So, yeah, I mean, it really depends what role you go for. Some roles are much more hands-on than others. As part of your induction process in submarines, you get to walk around the shop floor and you'll get to see the Devonshire Dock Hall where we build and release the submarines. So you get to walk around the shop floor, but you wouldn't necessarily get to go on it.
Yeah.
But depending on what role you do, you more often than not, you'll get a couple of chances to get on it at least. I've been on a couple between placements and the graduate scheme as well. I've largely been working from home on the graduate scheme, but I've had a chance to be on a submarine in the Devonshire Dock Hall while it's still in build and in the Wet Dock Quay before it's released.
Oh wow, I bet you were blown away.
It's really small. I'm only 5'2", so goodness knows how.
Oh, you're small. I thought you said it was small.
No, it is. So it's such a big platform, but inside, goodness knows how these submariners get on this. It's really tight. Everything's packed in so tightly, and actually that's really what we do. To be honest, it's making sure everything's packed in as tightly you can to make it as comfortable as possible.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, gives me heebie-jeebies just thinking about it. And Cameron, have you actually gone and seen a Typhoon in person and worked on it?
Well, so I've seen them in person when we were back last year at this point when we were all still physically at work. I'm
Yeah.
in my spare room at the moment, but I have been there and I've seen them. I've seen the sort of constructions and you know, parts of that and working alongside it. Unfortunately, my role isn't particularly hands-on in terms of, you know, I'm not there turning spanners or, you know, screwdrivering bits or anything of that nature. But, you know, I do see them. I mean, I used to work in a hangar, like I'm in an office within the hangar, so I get to see it every day when I was there. So, I mean, as hands-on is I think I'm comfortable with. I don't think I trust myself much beyond that, really.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Thanks, guys. Yeah, that's really interesting. So I'd like to now move on to the application process. Have to mention before about the application process, and James, I want to focus on your experiences. I mean, you mentioned it a little bit before, but we've got a few points to cover. So in particular, could you tell the viewers and you know, the people on the panel more about the coding and decryption challenge that you had to do as part of your assessment? And what is it? How did you prepare?
So yeah, applied intelligence, which is my area of BAE Systems, they have a slightly different process. So as part of our online competency, towards the end, there's some optional questions which are based around the area that you're looking to go into. It's up to you if you answer them. For me as a software engineer, I got the lovely opportunity to do a coding challenge and a decryption challenge. And they weren't really told to us beforehand. It was just hey, this sort of thing's going to be on, you know, just see what you can do. Don't worry if you can't. It was fun. The coding challenge was fairly straightforward. I think for an industry perspective, I think quite a lot of companies now use the idea of leak code, some simple logic-based questions that you've got to code out. It was fairly nice. And then the decryption challenge was a fun challenge because I've never done decryption before. So that was working around regex and trying to replace expressions through code and language and trying to come out with what the phrase was. I don't know if I got it, but I think I did based on a few little hints. But no, it was fun, and it was nice that it was different rather than being the standard. Let's see how fast you can do maths and English, and now let's see how quickly you can do a bit of code. It was nice that it was different for once.
Yeah, definitely. I think you just answered this question, but is with when we're speaking to people about assessment centres and the process and things like that, there isn't necessarily a right or a wrong answer. You know, sometimes the recruiters are looking at how you get to the result that you've got to. Did you kind of get that feeling, or do you think there was a correct answer about how you coded something or how you decrypted something? Is it right or wrong? I don't know if you can answer this, or whoever.
I'll let Hafsa answer if she wants to, but I think from my perspective, the coding challenge, that was definitely an element of that, because they made it clear that they will be reviewing your code.
Yeah.
So you want to make it nice, legible, readable for anyone else to come across and see how you've done it. But I think the application process as a whole was really geared towards finding out if you're the right person for the company, rather than just, are you smart enough for the company? Which was very nice that they're, I'm sure people talk about it later, but BA are very open to giving you the opportunities to develop and get trained up, rather than just wanting someone who's the ready product and that's that.
Yeah, definitely. So it's the full package, isn't it? I mean, they can tell you about all the different coding that they would want to teach you later on. So I think it is just about, you know, finding the right people. And your application and your assessment centre, sorry, you mentioned before that you were, or you know, you still are based in Northern Ireland, but your assessment centre was in England. So how did BAE Systems help with this? You know, did they fund for your travel and things like that? How did all of that work?
Yeah, so with me being at university over in Northern Ireland, it wasn't as simple as just driving down.
Yeah.
So BAE offers travel compensation anyway, but because it wouldn't cover either of my trips, either for the placement or for when I eventually applied to the grad scheme, I got in contact and said, look, I appreciate if you can't, but it would really help me out as a student. And straight away came back, said, yep, we've got confirmation that that's okay. Just go for it. So that was very nice.
Yeah, fantastic. So is that something that you offer across the board, or do the students and graduates have to, you know, get in contact with you first for you know, the help with the funds?
So we do look at the welcome payment that we do, which is a 2,000 payment for the graduates when they first start in the business, and support some of the relocation. But we do look at each individual cases once these graduates have come through the recruitment process. But it's something that we do try and support with the relocation package.
Brilliant, perfect. And so thanks very much for that, James. And now I'm going to move on to, I'm going to, similar experience for you, James, but I'm going to move on to Kira and ask you this question. So the video interviews, they're all a bit strange, aren't they? You're basically just talking to yourself. And Jessica does this on a daily basis when she is just presenting. Well, little bit of that, love, and a little bit of presenting to herself. But what was it like? What was the whole video interview process like? How did you prepare? And how can you settle people's nerves before they go on and do one?
I mean, it is a really alien experience, you sitting answering questions to yourself. And actually, that's the hardest part. The questions themselves are a breeze in comparison. I would think. I would say ultimately practice makes perfect. There's a couple of questions that come along with the link if you're invited to complete a video interview. So definitely I would recommend doing those a couple of times. But there are so many resources online that you can use as well. I think the more you do, the more you get used to it. And like you say, we're in this world now where we do everything virtually. So we are getting slowly better at it, and we're getting more used to talking to ourselves, really, because of all the time we spend on Zoom calls. But yeah, ultimately, you just a quick Google search and you'll find so many different resources that you can use. And the more you do them, the easier it gets. That's it, really. Make yourself as comfortable as possible. Make yourself a cup of tea. Sit somewhere where you feel at ease. That's the best thing you can do. And ultimately, just practice.
I've got a little hint and tip for this as well. So I've been, again, doing presentations. It does feel really odd to be presenting, and when you can only see your face and you can only just see other little black boxes. So I always say, when the students are in a lecture, and again, it's virtual, they're attending an event which they can ask questions, try it, do it, put your camera on, put your mic on and ask. Because even by doing little bits like that, it's building up your confidence. So when it does come to a video interview, you feel a little bit more prepared, what it's like. Because I always say all the time, it's totally different talking on this than it is when you can actually see people in 3D and you can touch them and everything else. You see what I mean? It's completely different, isn't it? You can read the room. So anyone who's got any online sessions, which I'm sure they will this afternoon, get confident, turn your mics on, turn your cameras on and ask those questions. Don't just dive onto the chat.
I mean, you can always practice as well, like, for example, if you wanted to Skype or Zoom your mum, say, for example, get your mum to turn a camera off so it does just look like you're talking to you, because as Kira says, the questions, you're used to the questions, you're asking yourselves these all the way through the recruitment process, but it is just literally sitting and looking at yourself, which I think is just the most bizarre thing. So do something, ring a friend, whoever, make them turn the cameras off, so it is very like for like situation. And the Career Centre on Gradcracker as well, Hannah, our colleague, has written blogs and lots of sorts of advice and things like that about how you can prepare for these video interviews. So make sure, obviously, go to the Career Centre, look at all these different articles and things like that we've got on there before you apply to BAE Systems. Now, moving on, Cameron, your application process was a little odd.
Yeah, so certainly was. So I originally applied for a different role to the one I'm working for now. However, I was unsuccessful with the application. So at the time, unfortunately, I kind of just carried on looking for other places that I could apply for. However, a couple months later, I received a phone call from the actual graduate recruitment team, asking if I'd be interested in applying and interviewing for a different role. They said they looked over my application, they obviously held it on file and kind of said that new opportunities come along, we think you might be a great fit for it. Would you be interested in interviewing? So I didn't do what at the time was typical to do, sort of an assessment center. I was rejected after I was unsuccessful after my video interview, kind of doing the recorded sort of answers. And from then I got invited down up to Preston at the time, to come and see and do the sort of face-to-face interview.
Yeah.
The interview itself was really nice. It was the nicest I've been on as part of the sort of job hunting sort of stage.
Yeah.
Start off as a very sort of like casual conversation, being very comfortable towards the end of it, and really realized I was in an interview until it kind of like was drawing to a close, really.
Yeah.
We got through a lot of these sort of more getting to know me questions, just seeing, as it's kind of mentioned, about seeing who I am, seeing what I'm interested in, what I'm passionate about, and then kind of getting into some more technical questions. But they provided great feedback at the end of it, allowed me to ask any sort of questions, even so much as where the nearest bus stop was. They were happy to sort of help me with that.
Yeah.
So it was a great experience, albeit a bit unusual, but I'm glad of it, definitely.
Oh yeah, brilliant. I bet when you got that phone call, your heart was just like, oh, because it was, it's your dream come true.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks, guys. We've been to Preston. We've been to your place in Preston, haven't we, Jess? Do you remember?
Yeah.
A couple of years ago. We got lost. Standard. We always get lost.
I was driving, that's probably why.
Yeah, Jessica was driving.
So
I'm going.
Carla, I just want to say, just quite interesting how James and Camera, you both had quite a similar experience in the sense that, BAE have looked at you as an individual and thought, actually, we like you and we think you'd be better off in this situation. And I think that's a really nice thing, that BAE are looking at you guys as an individual. They're not trying to almost get the perfect fit, whoever fits the job description. I think that's a bit of a testimony to BAE as a recruiter, saying, they want the right people in the right roles, and they know when they've got a right candidate in front of them, and they'll do what they can to put them in the right places. So I just think that's really nice of the kind of the process, and a nod to BAE for doing that.
Yeah, and I think from Cameron's point of view, Cameron, obviously, you were unsuccessful to start off with, but you must have stayed in the minds of the recruiters or the people who interviewed you historically, to think, oh, actually there was a guy a couple of months ago and he'd be ideal for this role. So I think BAE Systems are really looking for the people as well as everything else. So yeah, I like that. Jenny, I'm going to go on to you now about your hints and tips for the whole recruitment process. You've got such lovely ideas about any help that you can give the students. So do you want to take the viewers and the listeners through those hints and tips?
Yeah, of course. There's so many things that I could say, but if I could just sort of whittle it down to a few points, I'd say sort of firstly, when you're applying for a role, do research the company, look at their values as well. You want to find a company that's right for you. It's not just about the right candidate, it's about whether you would enjoy being in that company too. And also read the job descriptions really carefully. It's important to think about sort of both the technical and the soft skills that they're looking for, and link these back to the experiences that you've had. And don't worry if you don't have kind of huge amounts of like industry work experience. I came into BAE Systems straight on the graduate scheme. I'd never done a placement there before. So you could talk about sort of any of your past experiences, whether it's volunteering or a part-time job, kind of societies or hobbies that you have, anything that can bring out those kind of transferable skills. I also think feedback and reflection is very key. So what I mean by this is sort of every application you do is an opportunity to learn, regardless of whether or not you are successful. So after each experience, make a note of the process you went through, the questions you were asked, what went well, what didn't. Ask for feedback if they can provide it. Ask your peers for feedback. Just anything that can help support you next time, something that you can learn from and improve, because it's a long process. And then finally, I just say, don't sort of keep an open mind, basically, and don't kind of shut yourself off from opportunities. If you feel, for example, a bit reluctant to change a career, or you're moving into an area outside of your field of study, I've had quite a few people asking sort of they wanted to switch from like chemical engineering to mechanical engineering, and they were really uncertain. But a lot of jobs sort of are looking for transferable skills. There's a lot of resources available as well if you wanted to take kind of an online course or look for information in books. So don't shut off opportunities because you feel, you know, they're outside of your field. You know, it's your career, so there's always opportunities that you can go into. And yeah, having an engineering background is a really versatile background to move into a lot of different areas.
Oh,
Oh,
Jenny.
Jenny. I feel like you've said so much stuff there. Well, me and Jess's reaction just go, oh, Jenny. And, you know, everything that you've just covered off there. So yeah, job descriptions. I mean, we bang on to students all the time. Read the job description. You know, Hafsa sits there and Hafsa's team, they don't just put these words together and, you know, think, oh, that's a job description. There's so much thought that goes into it. So really analyse the job descriptions. Again, Hannah, our colleague, has written articles and blogs about looking at a job description, how to interpret it and everything else. So yeah, absolutely. You've just said so many little bits there, Jenny. You are going to have a special feature on Grad Cracker about your little section, about all your hints and tips, because there's so much that I really want to cover off there, but I'm conscious of time, Jess, but definitely everything that Jenny's just said, do that.
Yeah, do that. Do that. I was
Thank you. Yeah, it means a lot because it's kind of having gone through the process. It's kind of reflecting on that's kind of stuff I would like to have been told, basically. Yeah.
I think that's so important, Jenny. I think this is what's so important about, I'm getting passionate now, I'm like leaning forward towards the camera, I'll have to back up, but this is why the webinars are so important, because you know, it's you guys, you've been through the experiences like me and Jess said, you know, have seen in the nice sense as well. We can bang on about it to our heart's content, but you guys have been through the process, you've got the skills, you've been there, done that, and I think everything that you say on these webinars is really important to the viewers, because you've been there, you're
not more relatable than what we are.
Yeah, of course you are. Yeah, it's peer on peer, isn't it? It's not good old Carla saying, oh, Carla says do this, mum. But yeah, anyway, Jess,
that's right.
I'll bang on.
I want to move on to kind of like the business units and your roles, so kind of touch upon that a bit more detail. So Kira and Jenny, you are both in the submarines business unit. Kira, can you give me an overview to what the sector does and the work involved, with the focus on your role as a product safety engineer?
So in our submarines business, we design, build, test and commission the most advanced submarines ever operated by the Royal Navy. These submarines are capable of circumnavigating the globe without surfacing. They're only limited by the food supplies that they can hold for our crew. Okay. They're very, very complex products, and as a safety engineer, me and my colleagues are responsible for ensuring that all of the systems that go into making this really complex product are safe. They keep the crew safe, they keep the platform safe. We want to make sure that that's still still intact, and we want to keep the wider environment safe as well. And as you can imagine, submarines operate in a really inherently unsafe environment with the pressures at the depths that these submarines operate. So that can be a challenge sometimes, but that's what we're here for.
Kira, can I ask a quick question? So are you allowed to tell me this? So I don't
know.
How much, I'll ask it, if you say no comment, then I'll just move on.
Okay.
How much food can a submarine house then? So we're talking a year, 5 years?
I actually don't know. Personally, I actually don't know, but I don't know if I can tell you either. So okay. I'll just say no comment, and then that'll cover that off.
Oh, I'm thinking about all this food and all this stuff. Sorry, Jess.
No, it's all right. Jenny, same question to you, I guess. Your role as a project manager within the unit. I know it's heavily like delivery based, isn't it? So can you give the audience a bit of an idea on what this all means and what you do?
Yeah, so as a project manager, so it can kind of roughly be split into kind of two main areas. So you've got like project controls and then like project management delivery. Okay. So project controls is sort of more focused on kind of generating and maintaining cost and schedule data. So such as producing like project schedules, Gantt charts and value data, all sorts of things like that. Whereas on the other side, sort of in a delivery-based role, we're much more involved in kind of the whole life cycle of the project itself. So from bidding for the work at the beginning to managing the design and the delivery of the actual product. So we tend to like manage the engineering teams like directly. So basically project controls kind of feeds data to us about our project, and then we kind of interpret it, and then based on that we make the project decisions that that ensure the project is delivered sort of to the contract we agreed and that our customers are satisfied. Yeah, so that's the kind of role that I'm in.
So both of you, it's quite a lot of responsibility, seems like, quite a lot of pressure as well. How big are both of your teams? Are they quite big, or?
I'd say my team is, so I have an initial team of about 5 or 6 people,
Right.
But that we only deal with a really, really small portion of the product. The
Right.
wider department, there's probably about 60 or 70 of us.
Right, wow.
And that's just for one project, so we've got 3.
Oh, right. Oh, wow, right. And Jenny, how about you? How big's your team?
So my program management team, like here, is quite small. So we've got, I think, about 7 or so people. But we work we manage a lot of teams of engineers. So if you add up everyone involved in kind of in the project that I'm in, it's probably kind of close to 100. I'm not actually sure on the exact number, but it's quite big. So a lot of people involved. Yeah.
Great. James, I'm going to move to you next. So you are within the Applied Intelligence team. Firstly, please can you tell us a bit about what this unit is involved and a bit more about the role specifically?
Yeah, so Applied Intelligence is one of the branches of BAE. So in a similar way to we have air, maritime, land, we have Applied Intelligence. It came in recently, I think about 14, 15 years ago. But then now it's helping governments reduce their risk in the ever connecting world, tackle cybercrime. And then we do a bit of more like consultant work on the side. I say on the side, I'm sure it's still a massive portion of what we do, but the focus tends to be more towards cybersecurity.
Okay. Because that is a massive growing kind of industry sector now, isn't it? Again, when I'm speaking to students, I always mention that's quite a big area, a bit of a growing industry. How many people are in your team and how many people do you work with, James?
So my team right now is 10 people with about, I want to say 40 to 50 for the project. But then as Kieran and Jenny said, if you start looking at wider teams, you come into, closer to 100, 200, just with all the different projects that we're working on.
Yeah.
So similar space, but we might not necessarily work together because we're working with different customers.
Yeah.
Who are your customers then, James? So we mentioned before about the armed force in the UK, but cybersecurity obviously will open up a wealth of new customers, new companies. So is it staying within the MOD or is it governments and things like that as well?
Applied Intelligence is, I'd say, one of the more commercial branches of the business.
Right.
So although we do work with still governments and different MOD, Navy, whoever, we do a lot more with, say, banks and CSPs.
Yeah.
So it's a lot more real world as opposed to just going into all the government bases.
Yeah. I think that's a bit of a misconception, isn't it, about BAE Systems, that you just think, you work on typhoons, you build, work on submarines and things like that, but actually it's a huge company. And you just mentioned then about the cybersecurity and doing like consultancy work as well. I think people out there might not know about that side to BAE Systems. So yeah, thanks for flagging that, James.
Yeah, that's good. Cameron, can you tell us a bit more about the air sector which you work in? I know you've kind of touched upon slightly about your role, but yeah, can you tell us any more about that?
Right. So the air sector is, as the name kind of suggests, more lean towards sort of the aircraft and sort of like plane sort of domain that we work within. I believe this is the largest portion of BAE Systems, and we work on a number of platforms or aircraft. We also do a lot of sort of servicing and sort of like work to maintain and support like aircraft fleets that we currently have out there. Some of the major platforms that we kind of run and operate are the Hawk trainer aircraft, the Eurofighter Typhoon being one of the most popular ones. And looking towards the future, we've even got things such as the Team Tempest project, which is a big multi sort of company workplace that we're looking to sort of push the future and look at the future of aviation. So within my sort of realm, I'm a quality assurance engineer working within the supply chain. So my work is typically split within two sort of major sort of sections of work. I deal mostly with non-conformance management and the supplier quality interface. So a bit of a mouthful for both of those, but to go into a bit more detail with them. So non-conformance management is kind of looking at and examining when sort of units or components of an aircraft can fail, or, you know, we tend to call it fall over, or something goes wrong with them during testing.
Right.
And at that point, I'll kind of go in, ensure the units are fully repaired, investigated, gone back to sort of any sort of supplier if it's something that they need to sort of look at, to ensure sort of the quality of our products are of the highest standards for our customers. The other section is the supplier interface, which kind of links into that. So I look after a number of sort of suppliers that feed into BAE Systems. So I am the sort of like quality point of contact for any sort of concerns they might have. So I can go in, talk to them, liaise with them, and monitor their performance, assist with any sort of changes or modifications or any sort of anything sort of happening within their business, even if it's so much as they're struggling because, you know, for example, the recent sort of pandemic issues, not having enough sort of trained staff there, and I kind of look in and I sort of offer any sort of support we can from our end.
Great. My claim to fame that I've actually sat in a typhoon at the RAF Coningsby.
She harassed them all day.
Oh God, honestly, I was draining on all day. I was like, please. Like, yes, Jess, maybe, we'll see. And I was like, please. But yeah, right at the end.
I think they said no, Jess, didn't they, all day? And then they just had enough of it. It's like, oh, just put her on that flipping plane.
Just shut her up.
Shut her up.
But yeah, so I've been, I mean, you obviously not on your scale, but just even being anywhere near something like that just absolutely blew me away. And the chance to sit in it was just like, oh my goodness. So working with that every day must be amazing. Next, I kind of want to talk to you all, and this is a question to all the grads about, and I know we might not be able to go into too much detailed, but can you give the audience an idea of your favourite project or experience you've had so far at BAE, starting with you, James?
So yeah, apologies that this is going to be the world's most vaguest description. I'm sure it'll be thrilling. But yeah, my best experience would have been towards the end of my year-long placement. I was given the opportunity to lead a fairly substantial project. So this meant that I got to visit the customer site, draw up the designs for the new system, work on the development, coordinate all the different teams, putting it together, and eventually getting to help install the system on site, which was fantastic. Got to deal with the customer a fair bit. And I think it leads back to what Kira was saying earlier, in that it was a really nice feeling knowing that they were treating me as an equal, giving me that opportunity. It wasn't just a, coffee boy on the side. It was a genuine opportunity that I was given and thankfully succeeded on.
Well done you, that's great.
James, what's the system? James, what's the system?
No, don't.
No comment.
One day.
Well,
Kira, how about you?
So I think mine is probably the project I discussed earlier, the one that involved a design change, and it ultimately would make our pieces of kit that we use on board safer and easier to use, and all these great things. I think, well, initially it wasn't supposed to be my project. It should have been done by another engineer who left the business shortly after I joined, and they didn't have anyone to replace him. So it was really opportunistic, but it was great. It was me, pick me. So no, it was really good. It was great to get that opportunity, and that I was trusted so early on. I mean, I think I'd been in the business about 2.5 weeks at that point. It was my first internship. They didn't know me very well. So yeah, but even then, so design changes are not easy things to put through on these kind of products. So I've been there since the concept during my first internship, did all the work to get it through, then picked it back up again when I came back after the following year at uni, picked up again, took it to the Royal Navy, had to present in front of really high up officers in the Royal Navy, so that was both nerve-wracking and exciting. But again, that was a great opportunity to get. That was in my second, and now it's going to implementation now that I'm back as a graduate. So I've followed the project the whole way through. So that's been great. The other thing we get to do is stretch assignments so we do these in addition to our day-to-day role. So I've been involved in producing an engineering newsletter. So we get important news, but also like little bits of different engineering information out to our engineering community within submarines. So that's quite good, and you get to interact with loads of different people. You get to build up your network, and that's probably the best thing about doing that.
Well, that's good to know. That a bit of something else on the side, which is, you know, using different skills and, like I say, getting to network and know each other. Jenny, moving on to you. My love, what's your favourite project so far?
So my favorite one is probably the one I'm on right now, actually. So as I said, I'm in submarines, but unlike Kira, I work in a slightly different area. So I'm in the integrated combat systems area. So we're responsible for essentially developing the system software and hardware that goes inside the submarine vessel. It's like a giant module that kind of just slots into the submarine shell. And much like kind of our 5 senses, it enables the submarine to navigate, move, detect, fight, do all of its functions. So that's essentially what the systems control. So in my current project, we're delivering the next common combat system, so called CCS version 4, that is going to replace the next replace the existing systems. It's considered quite a critical project in terms of maintaining sort of the continuous at-sea deterrent law, which states that a submarine has to be in the water 24/7, 365 days a year, pretty much. And so it will be going on to the new Dreadnought class submarine. So because it's critical, it's quite a fast-paced and dynamic environment, and that's something I quite like. I quite enjoy. I quite like the pace. I like being busy, and yeah. So our engineering teams have actually taken up kind of an agile methodology of working, which is something quite new to sort of our area of the business. It can be quite challenging as a project manager, managing sort of so many people, but it really does sort of bring like a big sense of like excitement and pride to sort of see all the teams piecing together their work.
Yeah, that. Oh, very impressive. Cameron, how about you?
Right. So in comparison, I think I've chosen a less exciting sounding project. I feel like it was mostly picked just so I can talk more about it rather than in just vague terms.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, one of the ones that I've enjoyed the most is looking into this additional sort of bring in of a tool set that will really ultimately like assist not only with my immediate team, but kind of the wider sort of functional area. It will save them time and effort. And what I've really sort of like, you know, what's resonated and really enjoyed about it is that it has been kind of a problem's been identified and it's been handed off to myself and another graduate. We've just been kind of said, we have this issue, we want a solution, go ahead. And so we've been allowed very much to kind of, I mean, albeit with a little bit of guidance, we do still need that, but like we have been kind of allowed to set our own sort of direction with it, look into these different ways, see what's currently available, do some experimenting. And you know, we've been able to collect all this data, put it together and put presentations towards some senior members of the business. And even so much as we've been looking and submitting requests for funding for this project. So I think it's a great way to kind of get in there, kind of understand how these sort of projects are run, how you can look to sort of widen them out and sort of networks you build for these. And even so much as getting visibility at a director's level, trying to get in to see what my sort of director thinks, you know, see how he challenges us, see if we can take away and what we can build on our project with. And ultimately having that kind of, you know, the trust put in you that, you know, here is some money, here is, you know, what you think and here's our thoughts, go ahead. And, you know, having that sort of statement for just a graduate felt great. Having that sort of, you know, real responsibility and a real impact to how we could work in the future has been, you know, amazing, really.
Yeah, I bet. Gosh, honestly, your answers, guys. I'm conscious of time because I'm thinking it's already 10 to, and we're going to probably run on. So anyone that can't stay after 3, don't worry, the session's recorded.
I know that Jenny can't stay either, Jenny, because you're in back-to-back meetings all day, aren't you? So
yeah, I actually pushed one back so I can stay until 1:15, so a bit more time. Yeah.
Actually, it's just so interesting, isn't it? Honestly, you guys you all have to learn a different language as well, don't you? About what you can say and what you can't say. Honestly, me and Jess in particular, because she's a loudmouth, would be really bad at that. So it's a good job we work for Gradcracker and not a top secret company, because we'd get sacked. Right, guys. So we've learned all about your projects, why you chose to work at BAE Systems, and the recruitment process. Now, Jenny and Kira, I want to focus on you two again, if I may. With regards to like the mentorship schemes and the development that you have at BAE Systems. So Kira, starting with you, could you tell us a bit more about the personal effectiveness training? What is that and how does it help you?
So the personal effectiveness training is part of the graduate scheme, and it's in addition to your day-to-day role. So there are 4 personal effectiveness modules that you'll complete throughout the graduate scheme. And the first of these you'll do during your immersion induction program when you join the business.
Yeah.
That'll be within your first week or so that you do that one, and you're introduced to our corporate company behaviours, which we expect, they are embedded throughout the company, not just in submarines, they're UK wide.
Yeah.
But so the modules kind of take you through these, and we try and develop these behaviours throughout the training. The purpose of the training really is to provide you with tools and develop your softer skills to carry you not just through the graduate programme, but ultimately the rest of your career. So you do learn about the company behaviours, but you also learn about things like feedback, getting feedback from managers, getting feedback from your peers, and using these in a positive and effective way. And like Jenny says, they really kind of push reflection. And actually that's something that I don't think I really did enough before I joined the business, and that's really helped me. So so that's basically what that is.
And you mentioned the immersion induction week.
Yeah, so the immersion program when I started, which was September 2019, was a 3-week induction program where you learn all about the business. You do you get different presentations from all different people. We had lunch with the directors. We got a couple of tours actually around the site. And then so for a couple of, so that was a 3-week program, but for the Thursday and the Friday of those weeks, you were in the office getting to know your team, getting to know your manager, and all that kind of thing. And really just getting to know your cohort, which actually the personal effectiveness modules are a really good way to catch up with the cohort that you joined with, because once you go back and go out into your roles, you don't see them as often as you would think. Jenny and I in our cohort, we catch up socially when we can, but that tends to be outside of work. So the personal effectiveness modules are a really good way to catch up.
Fab, thank you, Kira. And I have a question for you. Is that across all the different business units? That's not just submarines. Yeah,
so the immersion program itself is a program where we put all the new starters at intake together. So it's networking as well. So we are currently putting the pre-onboarding portal, which is information up front. So before they join with us, it's a really good opportunity to kind of start networking. We build in LinkedIn closed discussion groups. So it's just a great way to network, but also get some upfront information before you start your first day. And as you can imagine, things like is lunch provided or what's the dress code, all that information on the portal, which I manage. So fantastic, it's really good. And it's something where we can really bring that collaboration as well for the new starters, putting faces to name from business units as well.
Brilliant, thanks Hafsa and thanks Kieran. Jenny, from your point of view, I'd now like to know more about there's 2 things. So reverse mentorship, now why is that a benefit to you as an individual and BAE Systems as a company as a whole? And also a little bit more about the project management developing new training, if you could tell us a little bit more about those.
So the reverse mentoring, so that's something that Integrated Combat System does. It's like a mentorship scheme where they pair up a graduate with a member of the senior leadership team. So I'm currently sort of paired with the commercial and future business director for Combat Systems. And the idea really is to allow kind of graduates to feedback our impressions and experiences. And it could be on sort of general matters like how effective business communications are and how we interpret them. Or it could be sort of more personal advice to our mentee, like impressions of them as a person in the leadership team. And how better they can present themselves to be more approachable or more friendly. So not only is it sort of a great opportunity for exposure, but it's also nice to kind of have your thoughts heard, especially being a graduate. We're new to the business, it's a great beneficial kind of learning opportunity for both both parties.
Yeah.
And it also it benefits the business in the long run as well, because it's trying to create sort of a more inclusive environment and kind of minimize that feeling of kind of hierarchy which you tend to feel when you're a graduate in a new business. So yeah, it feels sort of nice to kind of have your thoughts heard
Yeah,
from someone so senior. Yeah.
Mm.
And then the project management developing you, or PMDY for short, is something that's offered to people on the project management graduate scheme.
Yeah.
So the business funds us to do kind of a 3-module course, and it's the course is developed by BAE Systems, but it prepares us to sit kind of the accredited APM PMQ exam, which is the project management qualification part of Association for Project Management,
Yeah.
the sort of professional body. So it is 3 modules, a total of around kind of 10 full days plus 5 days of revision spread out. And yeah, it preps you for the exam. And you don't have to be sort of a project manager to take it. It's kind of priority is given to graduates and project managers, but if you are kind of at a later stage in your career and you want to make a career switch, then it is available for everyone.
Yeah, definitely. It just gives you more and more skills, doesn't it, as you're going through.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do now, I'm just conscious it's 1 minute past, so I'm going to go on to I love this bit, so I'm going to squeeze this in wherever it kills me. The key fact about BAE Systems. So, Kira, key facts about BAE.
So we are one of the largest global defence companies in the world. We employ over 85,000 employees worldwide, and at any given time we have over 2,500 graduates and apprentices training with us. So there's definitely tons of opportunities for everyone.
2,500, wow. So no wonder you don't sleep at night with all these grads and apprentices to look after. James, key fact.
So this was done 2018, but on average, each employee contributed £83,000 to the UK economy.
How?
We make a lot of stuff.
I make a lot of stuff, love it. Simples. Cameron?
Right, so I'm trying to think now. Well, like I prepared Kira's answer really. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, I want to know your 5-year plan as well, Cameron. Now you've landed your dream job, what are you going to do next?
Oh yeah, do that. That can be a fact.
Right.
What's
Okay.
your 5-year plan?
Okay, so my sort of aim with it is, well, I'm on this graduate scheme, which we kind of mentioned. It runs typically from 18 to 24 months. However, it's been a bit sort of difficult with this current pandemic and not being like physically on site. So it might be extended a bit more, a couple of months or something, but that's still sort of in discussion. We're trying to be sort of flexible with that.
Yeah.
Once I've kind of finished it, I would like to put in a good sort of bid for what's known as our new Future Talent Program, or the FTP. So this is a kind of like a system to identify potentially like high potential graduates and kind of give them an 18-month stretching program, which will kind of help jumpstart them into looking into a line manager position or kind of like going into that executive role from an earlier sort of stage. Yeah. It is quite competitive. I do understand that typically only about 10% of the graduates who kind of go for it really get onto it. So, I mean, my plan would kind of keep developing myself with my team, really enjoying what I'm doing. And I know that, since my immediate team is quite small and, in the nice way possible saying it, a lot of them are approaching retirement. A lot of people, I'm very young for my team. So I think that there is a good opportunity to sort of like excel and really kind of get myself up that career ladder quite quickly.
Yeah.
As our work kind of develops, as I mentioned, the sort of Team Tempest coming to the big part of it, as sort of the programs move forward and things, I would like to get onto that sort of work and start being really kind of key member of that, future aviation sort of system and what we're going to do with that. So I think it's just, I'm going to take full advantage of all development opportunities at BAE and really kind of push the boat out. I've taken a lot of opportunities that I see. Anything that makes me feel slightly uncomfortable, it's been a big point for me, just saying, well, do it then. Don't stay in your comfort zone. You've got all the opportunities now, and whilst you're a graduate, you're more, it's not accepting, but it's more accepting, and they'll kind of treat you and allow you to learn from your mistakes. So make them whilst you're there, and whilst you can still use that graduate title, really. So pushing it while I can.
I still use that when I go to meetings and I'm 35, I'm like, oh, I'm only new. Can't use it anymore. Jess still uses it, don't you, love?
No, it's when we go have meetings and Carla introduces me as the director and I go, oh no, don't call me a director. I'm not sensible enough to be a director.
I don't want any responsibility. Jenny, on to you.
Well done, though, Cameron. Good luck with that. Let us know.
Thank you.
Yeah, good luck, Cameron. Jenny, final fact from you.
Yeah, mine was actually also nicked by Kira as well, but I'll pick a different one. So I'll talk about kind of like the employee resource groups that we have. So we have, I think, 6 of them. So they're sort of aimed at sort of offering support to a diverse range of communities within the business. So I know we've got sort of Enabled, our disability network. We've got Outlink UK supporting the LGBTQ+ community. We've got Embrace supporting cultural and ethnic diversity. I think Gen supporting gender equality. VetNet, our veterinary community, and Mindset for mental health and well-being.
Fantastic. So lots of communities that everybody can get involved in there at BAE Systems. Hafsa, last word from you. So I'm going to pick a question. Benefits. What would you say are the key benefits of working at BAE?
So I think the last question that we kind of done with the key facts is very much summarising what I was going to mention anyway. So we are we create an inclusive, dynamic and rewarding environment at BAE Systems, where we do thrive and inspire the young individuals that are coming into the business and make where it really counts. So we value the importance of balancing home and work life, especially with the pandemic that's been going on as well. I think a diverse workforce itself will inspire creativity and really drive innovation from our individuals into the business. We offer fantastic benefits such as the competitive salary, generous leaves. We do maternity, paternity, some of the leave that people require. So we are catering as and when, individual circumstances. We have the salary scheme. We do the £2,000 welcome payment that would support anybody that's doing a relocation or needs to get a car, literally anything. We do service discounts. We've got the employee app, which supports a lot of the societies that we've just recently discussed. Mentoring, which is a really good one for us, where the individual really develop the career plan with directors from business, such as really driving their career paths with them, with the networking. A great innovative training program. Last but not least, our onboarding portal as well, which is really, really good. So I think personally it's an all-rounder, and we're always working with the graduates that come into the business to look at what feedback they have as well and how we can best bring some of these benefits and really work with candidates to retain them in the business as well.
Fantastic. Thanks, Hafsa. So we've ended this brilliant webinar on a high. Thank you so much to all of you. It's been absolutely amazing to hear about all your experiences, the projects that you've been working on, the bits that you can tell us anyway, and the projects that you've been working on, everything else. So thank you very much for joining us. Just one last note to say to everybody who's watching, the opportunities are still open, so they're still recruiting for placement and graduate opportunities. So get yourself on the GradCracker Hub and apply, get your applications in, apply today. Next thing I was going to say is Sky. We are joined by Sky next week, Europe's largest entertainment brand. Jess is taking a break, but Soph's joining us. So thank you very much, everybody who's joined us today. Thank you, BAE. You've been amazing, and we'll see you then. See you soon, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.